Hello and welcome to Missed Checkpoints, the Video Game Book Club podcast. Today we're finishing up our discussion on Dead Cells. I'm your host Marcus, and joining me today as always are the homies. First off, we have Trevor.
What's going on?
And last but not least, we have the homie Greg.
What up?
Unfortunately, Dante couldn't make it to wrap up the discussion for Dead Cells because he's out of town hanging out with family and everything. So we, the three of us, are going to handle knocking out this discussion and closing out the 2018 calendar year. So let's get back into this Dead Cells. And I guess Greg wasn't on the last discussion, so let's kind of bring him up to speed and I guess introduce his background with the game and genre. So had you played Dead Cells before, Greg?
No, I haven't.
And is this a genre, the Metroidvania roguelike genre? Is that something that you find yourself ever going to, or is this something you don't play that often?
I play a few roguelikes. So I guess the most recent ones I played. What is it? Enter the Gungeon. I think that's it.
Okay, I played that.
So
one.
I played that, and then before, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it came out. I'm drawing a blank here. It's like you kind of go into a castle and you play as a knight, and it's like a 2D game. Like I'm drawing a blank on the name.
I know a game. You're talking about Rogue Legacy?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why I couldn't figure out the name, but yeah, I played maybe like 10 or 15 hours of that game.
Jeez, did you get far in it?
A little bit, but I never beat it. Like
I played that game maybe 3 or 4 hours, and I was trash at that game, and I never beat the first castle.
But I had fun with it. Like, the same with Enter the Gungeon. I never could get super far in it, but I kind of enjoyed the gameplay. So, I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of the same, like, relationship I've had with Dead Cells. Like, I'm not great at it, and I don't get super far every time I play, and I definitely get frustrated a lot, but It's a pretty satisfying game.
Had you played any of the Metroid or Castlevania games?
Yeah, so I guess I had played Symphony of the Night whenever that got re-released on 360, and played the GBA Castlevania games, and same with the Metroid games too.
Just the GBA ones? You never played those?
Yeah.
Dang,
I probably played like maybe an hour of like Super Metroid whenever like somebody gave that to me, but that's about it.
Gotcha. Okay, so you have experience in the genre, but it's not necessarily a genre that you go to a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about Dead Cells? Then I guess we can open it with you. What were your initial impressions with the game?
So I kind of heard a little bit about it from the Bombcast. So kind of had an idea what to expect, but coming into it, like my first impressions was I thought the game was really fun. Also, just the art style of the game I think is even I streamed a little bit of it, and everybody just kind of commented on like how nice the game looks. Like it's got this kind of sprite based 2D art that's like really well drawn and animated. But yeah, like I really enjoyed the game. There's definitely those times where you'll have those bad runs where you just can't seem to get the right items or the right build that you want. So that can be a little frustrating sometimes, but it's not like the penalty for death is like super annoying. Like it's not. It's pretty easy to get back to where you previously were, so it's not like a huge deal.
I guess we can kind of maybe open this up a little bit, because I believe Trevor, one of his complaints the last time was he didn't like when you die, your run is over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it as I was playing, and do you feel like you're making progress even when you're not doing well in this game? And that's for both of you guys, you, Trevor, and Greg. Did you guys feel like you were at least learning something, or was it beneficial at all to make progress and die, or did you just feel like it was a wasted 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever amount of time?
I mean, I felt like I was making progress just for the fact that you do get to keep, or not, you assuming you make it to the checkpoint area, at least you can use your cells there. So at least you have that to look forward to be like, okay, well, I'm unlocking items as I'm doing this as well. But I do wish that it had kind of the Dark Souls thing to it, as like, oh well, if you die, you can go pick up your cells. But I guess it's a little difficult to do that in a game that's supposed to have kind of randomized levels, I guess, or maybe they're not necessarily randomized. But to me, it feels like maybe parts of it are, but there's definitely like areas that keep popping up over and over.
I think maybe trying to explain. They're randomly generated, but there are certain key things that always will appear on the level.
Yeah,
right?
like,
I think,
isn't
like,
it?
since they're procedurally generated, they kind of follow the same path. Like when you get to like the promenade area, like it has kind of the same layout,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but the landscape has changed.
Yeah, or the obstacles or the enemies that you're gonna fight, you may fight more this time, and then like even something like silly like the cells, like maybe this run you kill everybody and do everything and you get 12 cells, and maybe the next time you do and you get 20. So that varies as well, and the type of enemies, whether it be just the normal enemies that you would fight on that level, or like an elite version of an enemy, that always differs. Did you get? I don't want to say better, but did that start? Do you understand why the game does that, Trevor? Does that help?
Um, like from the games that I have played that kind of have like a permadeath, it all seemed like they still increased your gameplay on a sense of like I guess your some form of upgrade. Like this game is more skill based, but other games that I've played have been more like tangible benefits of playing over and over again. Like if you keep banging your head against it, eventually, it is just gonna throw you a bone and be like, hey, at least you're gaining experience and your character is increasing. So like when you start off in the game, your character is a little bit better from the jump, rather than saying, okay, well, you might have a chance of getting better gear this time around.
And I might be misremembering. I'm not sure, but I want to say in Rogue Legacy, your gold carries over from your deaths, so you can always upgrade stuff. Even if you have a bad run or whatever, you can at least take that money and then spend it on upgrades.
Yeah, yeah. If I remember correctly, I don't remember if it's 100% of the money or whatever, but that is a thing. The I guess maybe the difference for what you're saying, Trevor, is like, to me, and this is because of the background. Maybe Greg, you can attest to this too. Dead Cells is more like a fighting game, and maybe some of the games that you've been playing, Trevor, are maybe at least the reward system like is like more like a Call of Duty, where like Call of Duty is like definitely if you do better in a match, you're going to get more experience that are going to help you unlock things. But just like being a body in the lobby, you're still going to get experience. Whereas in this game, you're really only rewarded if you are taking in the data or the information of what's happening. So how the enemy attack patterns are, and what the traits of the level, or like what poison does to you, or what like the forgotten sepulcher, or I don't know how to say it, but like that level that we touched on last episode, that level has a mechanic where if you're out of the light, you slowly start taking more, taking damage, and the longer you're out of the light, the more damage you take out, and the faster it gets taken away from you. And there's a very specific way you have to play that level that is completely different than any of the other levels that you have to play. And even like some of the enemies, they have very specific attack patterns, or attacks really that you have to avoid in different ways. So there's different items or weapons that are way more effective against some enemies than other enemies. And to me, it seemed more like a fighting game, where it was just like the very first time, or even a couple of times you get to a new level, you are just I know for me, I was always on the edge of my seat and trying to like take in as much information as I can while trying to play my play style. And if I died, then I'm like, dang, how did I die? What are the enemies that I had trouble with? What did they do? How was the level set up, and what can I do to the next time I get to this level? What should I make sure that I try to spec to in order to more effectively or efficiently fight that enemy or deal with that level?
And see,
And
that's where I had the most
mhm,
problems, like when you first encounter a new enemy.
mhm,
Because, like you said, you may not know their attack pattern and you're just trying to learn it for the first time.
yeah,
If you were to encounter it, like there were instances where I came into some enemy encounters and there might be a new enemy, like within a group of familiar enemies, and I would end up dying, but I wouldn't have enough time to take that in and learn the new enemy's attack pattern to figure out, okay, how did I get into this situation? Because I mean, there were tons of instances where there would be one of those totems that would basically give all the enemies around it a shield,
yeah.
and I'm sitting there trying to find the totem, but at the same time, I've got all these other enemies attacking me.
You
Maybe,
basically are pulling or kiting them.
yeah, and it's situations like that where it's just like, okay, I'm not learning anything because right now the odds are stacked against me,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna get overwhelmed and end up dying. But there's no way for me to kind of learn from this because I have to play 20 minutes or so to get back to this point in the game.
Yeah. And so I don't. Do you know roughly about how much you put in total time wise after we before prior to recording the first episode? Do you remember how much time you put in, and do you remember how much time you put in after between then and now?
I probably put in about 5 hours before our first recording,
Yeah.
and then maybe about 4 hours um, before this recording,
Okay.
and
And
that's not including the time that you played and I watched you.
do you know about roughly how far you got into the game? Like,
I
what's
got
the
to
furthest?
the first boss twice.
Okay. So that's as far as you got. You never beat the first boss?
No,
Okay. And Greg, do you happen to know?
So I believe I got to the second boss. I know I beat the first boss a few times.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the last level that I got to. I did get to the sepulcher or whatever. I
Yeah,
got
the
to that
Forgotten
stage,
Sepulchre.
and I remember getting to something that looked vaguely kind of like a pirate ship area looking thing.
That's yeah, shoot, what's the level called? I know what level you're talking about. It's right after the first boss. It is
Yeah.
dang, it's gonna drive me crazy that I don't know that level off the top of my head because that was
is it the still?
Stilt Mirror or something like that. The Stilt Village, or Stilt. I don't know how to say that, but so you said, but you did get to the second boss once, the clock room.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, um, and do you know about how much time you probably put in overall in the game?
Probably like 6 or 7 hours, something like
Okay,
that.
so that's pretty good. If I do so myself, I think I put in. I don't know what that person's doing. I put in like 20 hours before our first episode, and I could pretty consistently at that point beat the first boss. Honestly don't remember how long it took me to be able to get to the first boss the first time, but I could pretty consistently beat him uh, at 20 hours, no matter what gear I had. I didn't have to like. He was a breeze, and then I probably between the last episode and this episode, I probably did another 20 or 25 hours in this game. And I just yesterday I beat the game once, so I beat it for the first time yesterday. I've only beaten it once. I haven't played it since I beat it, but the
Still trying to get rid of the shakes.
I'm shook.
Get
Yeah,
the nerves going.
man, I was hyped. But yeah, the second boss was pretty rough for me, and The last boss, I beat him on my first try, which was very surprising. But there is definitely a learning curve with this game, and I don't know if either of you guys intend to continue to play the game after we're done playing it or talking about it or whatever. But I do think that you will get a better appreciation for the game if you stick with it and like kind of learn some of the nuances of the game and like how things interact. I forgot what did you say your particular issue was, Trevor?
Which part?
Just with you said you got to the first boss once or a couple times,
Yeah.
and you were saying that
Okay, so the first time I got to the first boss, I thought I was doing pretty good gear wise.
mhm,
I think as far as like my what do you call like bombs and traps and stuff?
the
Like
grenades or the tactics,
yeah,
the tactics.
yeah. Those I had two really good like the turrets,
Sure, sure.
and then I had this is where I messed up. I had a broadsword and that the what's it called? The weapon you were telling me, the crossbow weapon.
Okay.
I had both of those, and those two weapons are slow as hell.
Yeah.
They were putting in work up until the final boss, or not the
Mhm.
final boss, but the first boss. But then I guess because I was trying to get in some attacks with those two weapons, I just wasn't quick enough before I got hit. Like I would either have to just get one hit in and then move around, but I started getting impatient and ended up taking too much damage.
Yeah, so one of the things that I noticed and I do like about this game is that you can I feel like you can take anything you start off with and you can get pretty far in the game with it. Granted, you're potentially upgrading it and everything, and optimizing it as best as you can. But I do like the fact that the things that you are effective with on the levels, like I feel like that doesn't necessarily translate over to the boss. So the bosses do feel like they are like a you have to change your play style in order to progress. And I do like that it makes it feel more like a video game, like a more traditional video game instead of like a run based video game. I don't know if you guys or if you felt that way, Greg.
I was gonna say about the first boss in particular. Like the only objection I have to that is I feel like if you get to the first boss and you have the traps or I forget what's called, but they're like bear traps basically.
Yeah, the wolf
And
traps.
yeah, if you get that and then you get like a bomb or anything like that, like it's pretty easy to. I mean, that was the only way that I could consistently beat the first bosses. If I had like those two things, it was pretty much guaranteed I was gonna beat them.
Yeah, I mean, typically for the first boss, like I either had a ridiculous, like the few times I had just a ridiculous amount of DPS and like not something slow hitting like Trevor, or
Hmm.
if I did run a broadsword and a double or the crossbow or whatever type of slow crossbow, I tried to pair it up with either something that could freeze them, so like an ice grenade or a frost blast, or something that would basically keep them in place, either a stun grenade, the root grenade, or even the wolf traps, like you were saying. So like after playing this game more, I had an idea of like, okay, I need to make sure I have one of these things, one of these boxes checked before I go to that first boss, because that will just, as long as I have one of these things checked, I will be able to like basically handle him with no effort or issue. And not to say that that's the only way that I've beaten him or that's the only way you can beat him, but I just had a mental log in my game or my head where it was basically like, okay, the first three levels or first two levels are a breeze. Get to this boss. I just need to make sure in this. It's like a grocery store. I'm going around the grocery store. It's like, okay, uh, by the time I get to here, I need to have one of these things. Is how I
Yeah.
always play the game. And then even had that at a certain point once I got to the second boss, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that my damage is at 1K or something. I need to have at least one item that is 2 pluses at this point to be able to stand a chance or whatever. And even then, like, um, it just it depended on like what my other gear was, because sometimes you get a set of items that are like they just really really go well together. So
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's a luck of the run, but I feel like I got to the point because I had played so much that like I could kind of like I had a little bit more wiggle room than if I would have had I not spent all that time playing.
And I guess that's where one of my issues was, because maybe I just didn't play it enough, but it seemed like some of my best runs, um, I would finally get used to a certain weapon, and I would
Mm-hmm.
never see that weapon again.
Yep. That was a. It's kind of it's kind of shitty to say that. Yeah, you should just play more and you would have done better. But I do think that is a thing, and even more so that second part where you said where it was like, oh well, this item that I found or I got is really good, and then it never pops up again, and I don't really know. I feel like the game has like a something in its code to be like if I started off with a very specific weapon that I up unlocked and I got it in the beginning of the game, I feel like as long as I held it long enough, I would find a better version of that weapon. And so like there was this one weapon I had that I unlocked that when you were when your life was under 50%, it critical hit was increased. The chance, the percentage of it being a critical hit was like raised to like 50%. So like if you were under, or no, actually I think it was 100%. So it was like it does normal damage if you're full health, and once you get down to under 50% health, then it does critical hit damage 100% of the time. And that weapon was pretty good on bosses when I'm getting hit or whatever. And I never found it ever. And then one time the game started, I picked it up in the very first room, and then I rocked with that weapon the entire game. And then like I think it was like the fourth or fifth level, I found a upgraded version of that. But that was the only time I'd ever seen that weapon. Even in the runs I had since then, the only time I ever seen that weapon. And I think the same thing like ice bows. I'm pretty sure those are items that are unlocked from the very get go of the game, but I don't think you can ever start the game with an ice bow. You have to always find it. And so like I found one pretty early in my run that I ended up beating the game with, and I found through on in that specific run, I found later two upgraded versions of that I ended up picking up. And it's like I think you're more likely to pick up upgraded versions of the exact items you have than not. And so if it's like the extremely rare stuff, then it seems like you're more likely to find it if you're holding it already, which is kind of weird and silly, but whatever. Um, I'm trying to think anything else. Criticisms or critiques of the game or things you want to bring up.
This might be another thing where I just need to play more, but when it comes to these types of games, I'm used to seeing a lot more variety of, I guess, weapons in general.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with this one, it seems like there's just the same type of weapons but different perks.
I th- I think that a lot of the other weapons that you get, you have to unlock. So I mean, I may be wrong about that because I didn't unlock a whole lot of stuff, but I think that's kind of the thing is like you have to unlock them with the cells, and then you'll start getting those at the beginning of the run, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Yes and no. Like we kind of touched on it the last episode, and it's basically like you're gonna start off. I think the game starts off with maybe like 7 items total unlocked or something like that. So you have like 1 or 2 grenades, like 3 traps, 2 or 3 melee weapons, a single shield, 2 different bows, and whatever. So there's like a maybe a dozen items total that you have at your disposal in the beginning that you'll find, and then of those 12, only a select few will be starter items. And basically, you're using your cells that you collect to basically unlock new items when you find those blueprints. you use the cells to unlock new items, and that is what makes the playing the quote unquote play experience more. Uh, you have more tools at your disposal. So you're right, Trevor, and I it's like a good and a bad thing because I feel like the more you play the game, in theory, the more you will unlock. But if you're bumping your head up against the wall and not really feeling the game, then you won't get to unlock anything, and you'll just like, oh, this game is kind of whack or whatever. So that was something I ended up this uh, I guess Christmas break. I was in Alabama, and I ended up going over to Trevor's house and playing some, and the his game compared to mine, what we had unlocked was night and day, and like part of that, a lot of that was because I mean I had 30 hours into my game where he was like on hour 5 or 6 or something. So like, of course we're gonna have a lot of things different. But me going back and playing at this 5 hour mark, which I don't really feel like he was on track where I was at the 5 or 6 hour mark. So it wasn't like he was not playing optimally or he wasn't unlocking things. It's just that you just have so fewer things to unlock at the lower level. So I was like, dang, I don't remember. I can't imagine myself having to deal with this now at the part that I'm at. So like me playing on Trevor's save file was like, oh, I'm struggling a little bit because I'm used to having an additional heal, or I'm used to having this weapon, or I'm used to having this ability or something like that. And so like it was weird to go back to like, here's a save file that's 20 hours less uh I don't want to say experience, but 20 hours fewer playtime than you have, and here's what you would have, what yours would have looked like. And I'm like, dang, like how would I ever go back to this? And so I was trying to unlock stuff for you to help you out.
And I guess that's where like the Metroidvania part of it comes into play, is because like in a typical Metroidvania type game, you would unlock stuff that would let you progress further in the game, um, you know, uh, in the same playthrough. Whereas with this game, you unlock items that allow you to play better or get past enemies more easily, as well as a couple of other skills like where you can create the vine to climb up stuff, or you can use the little totems to teleport. So
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's more of a Metroidvania in that aspect,
Hmm.
which is kind of like the benefit of, or one of the things you earn from replaying the game over and over. But as far as like the actual weapons, where I am right now, it's like you're still starting over from square one. And another thing about that is I probably watched about 2 or 3 hours of streams of this game and a few speed runs on YouTube. And like you said, because these guys have put in probably hundreds of hours into this game and have unlocked the majority of everything, it seemed like when they started off, they were easily leagues ahead of where I was when I started.
Yeah, and just no, like even something simple like we're even overlooking like having 10 hours experience. You'll have 10 hours of playing those first 2 or 3 levels more than you would have, at 2 hours or 6 hours or whatever. Just like you're 5 hours in, you've played the first 2 levels, 5 hours worth of however long it's taking you. But even just being 10 hours experience in, having that additional 5 hours, it will seem so much more trivial with the more experience that you'll have. You'll know the attack patterns, like I got to a point where I can run through the first 2 3 levels without getting touched, which I could not say that when I was at the part that you're at now. The amount of game time you put in, but it just comes with the reps that you have to get. And like one of the crappy things that I understand why it's like this, but it kind of makes it like maybe seem a little bit less fun, or maybe you're not seeing why I like this game as much as I do is like the weapons you start off with are pretty basic. You know, like the bow is like even something simple like the bows that you start off with a super simple just single shot bow and a single shot ice bow. Those are the two bows you have in the beginning of the game. And then like I think when I was playing for you, I unlocked the dual bow, which shoots two arrows at the same time, and then I unlocked the bow that shoots them in a spread like a shotgun. And those are just vastly different bows than the two you start off with. And then there's even more crazy stuff as you get on, and even just the way the upgrade system works, where yes, even you're upgrading and putting points in the red, the purple, and the green, but items are split. There, a lot of the weapons and items that I'm unlocking now are dual color instead of single color. So there's a lot more versatility in the weapons that you pick up. And a lot of the weapons have a lot of like unique status effect things. Like I was saying, like that sword that I had that did 50%, or once you were under 50%, 100% of it damage was critical rate. Like that's not something that you would find in the later level or in the earlier levels. A lot of the stuff you have is very basic and generic, which it's still suitable and still works, and you can still do a run with it. But it just the gameplay opens up so much more the more playtime, the more hours you put into the game. And even I got to the point now, I haven't unlocked any of them, but I have two abilities or things that I can unlock now with cells that aren't even weapons, but they go in the weapon slot, but they're basically like traits or abilities. So I have one that I think is called Glide or Hover or something like that, and it basically I can like float down from high jumps or something like that. I didn't unlock it because it doesn't sound like, I'm like, what is the appeal to this? But they're like powers that you can unlock. And then I found on one of the levels, it was the only time I've seen this thing, but it was a legendary of this item that was basically like a single use item. The cooldown, like you could use it once per level, and it was something stupid like you get back 30% of your life. It does a whole huge radius around you where anything in that area was immediately goes to bleeding, and they leak life over the course of 10 seconds, and it instantly poisons them. Because this was the legendary version, so it had like 3 different statuses or whatever that it had on it. And I just picked it up. I never used it before, and I was like, this thing seems OP, and I just used it without anybody around me, and I was like, holy crap, like this is awesome. And I never saw it again in the game. I haven't even unlocked the base level of it, but it just randomly popped up in one of my runs. And I was like, wow, this thing seems super powerful. And I've never run into it again, a single use item per level. And like I said, I haven't even found a blueprint for the most generic basic versions of those. So there is still more things to discover in the game. And like now that I've beaten the, I guess you could say baseline or the normal version of the game, it told me I unlocked the quote unquote hard mode. And I can imagine that similar to like freaking Borderlands, where like by the time I was at the end of the game, my items were the level 5 version of them, and they could have 2 pluses on them to upgrade them further. I'm assuming on expert or hard mode, you'll probably get like level 6, level 7, level 8 versions of it, and maybe like 3 or 4 pluses or something like that. Even thinking like Mass Effect, the first Mass Effect, how you could have like up to level 10 of an item. And I'm thinking like, wow, this game gets even crazier. So like the damage I was outputting by the time I got to the boss in the normal mode was about 3K. And I can easily see this game ratcheting it up and maybe being like 7. You need to be able to do 8 to 9K in order to beat the final boss. So
see,
it seems crazy.
When you were talking about that weapon, I was going to make that same Borderlands comparison.
Yeah, dude, it's exactly like that.
And I mean, I would love to see that type of thing throughout this game, where it's just like you just do some ridiculous stuff throughout the game, where like I don't know, everything catches on fire.
Yeah,
on the screen, like just random stuff like that. It would be nice if stuff like that popped up at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, something to
Kind of,
tell you, oh, this game's gonna get crazier.
yeah, definitely.
Because there's definitely. Oh, what's up?
Definitely.
We got a new person in here. What's up, Dante?
What's good?
Let's see. What we were talking about the items and like Trevor is playing with the base level items and I don't want to say he's not having fun, but he was like wishing there was more to the game.
Don't get me wrong, I definitely appreciate the fact that this game kind of instills a sense of accomplishment, and being able to find new weapons and like you're saying, when you do come across that one random weapon, that just
it could change a run.
Yeah,
when you run into an item that basically like it changes your run. It sometimes it is like the best feeling. It like I cannot describe it. Where it's like sometimes you're like, damn, like my items are fine, like I can get by, but they don't really, there's nothing that really stands out. And you find an item and you're like, okay, cool, I can reimagine my entire kit around this single item, and that completely changes the way this run was going. That is the best feeling you can have in this game. And for me, that was like the most exciting, like, because it's not something you could control. It's completely random. It's like, oh crap, that weapon dropped from this bad guy, like, from that elite or from this boss, like, that completely changes the run. It's such a, oh man, it's such a good feeling.
I could definitely, like, appreciate that. I think I have a different mindset about it. Like, when I go into a run, aside from, like, the very initial weapon, I kind of let my previous weapons dictate if I pick up a better weapon or not. So if I get something that's objectively better than what I have, but it doesn't fit the playstyle I've gone into the run thinking I'm going to do, then I'm not going to pick it up.
I do the same thing, but I think I'm a little bit more go with the flow in the first 2 or 3 levels. Anything up to the first boss. One thing I was telling them was that I had a checklist in my mind, a mental note, and I had to, okay, in order to beat the first boss, I need to make sure I have one of these boxes checked. Either something that freezes him or something that stuns him or something that roots him in place so I can roll around him and just keep him in one spot. And that was like, okay, that's how I'm going to beat this first boss. Not that I couldn't beat him any other way, but I after having enough reps on a certain level, I kind of told myself, okay, like, I need to make sure I have something that can do this on the first boss. I need to make sure I have something that can do this on the second boss. And that's kind of how I did my runs. So I was less rigid on what my items were, as long as one of them had whatever effect I needed to have in order to, in my head, beat the boss that I was on.
See, I don't know what's different between, like, about us, if it's something between like the PS4 version and the PC version, or just fundamentally about how we play. But after I got past the bosses, at least boss 1 and 2, I never had to think about beating them again. Like, it wasn't even a question about getting past
the
boss.
first time you beat them?
Yeah. Like, I never lost to the second boss ever. And then the first boss, like, after I got past him initially, he was a non-issue.
I lost to the first boss twice, and I lost to the second boss like maybe 6, 7 times, and I still would say I don't feel confident that I can beat the second boss every time I play him. Mostly, I think the second boss, at least
I think it's a playstyle thing. So
yeah.
One thing I was kind of withholding last time was my big strategy was having double. I don't know how you pronounce them. It's either Sinu or Sinu.
The little bleeding.
Like, I had
traps.
one of those in like one turret thing that pretty much does the same thing, but it's a little bit heavier.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much any projectile he threw on the ground, those would counteract.
They would shoot it and make it disappear or something?
Yeah, it literally just negates whatever he's throwing at you, and it does damage to him.
Oh, see, I didn't know that was the thing. The parts that I always had the parts for the second boss that I always had the issue with was fighting him while having to dodge the things that were falling from the sky. That's the part that I always died at. And then like the other thing was I always had a plus or double plus weapon on the second boss, but I think a lot of times I had that
damage plus 100.
yeah, which I didn't realize that meant you're taking double damage. So like a lot of times I would be taking like
Ooh,
way
boy, that's
more
like
damage.
the one thing I always avoid.
Yeah, so like I said, it wasn't until I actually looked up what that actually meant where I was like, oh, well, this explains why I was struggling against the boss because, and then also too, my run that I ended up winning with. I didn't know this, but the ice, well, shields do as well, but the ice items give you damage reduction. So your
like statistical damage reduction, or are you talking about like? I think it's on some of them that have it because the run I had damage reduction 55 overall between the necklace and 2 of my items.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's super key.
And that's what I had on my last run too was a whole bunch of damage reduction, and I don't think I don't have that damage reduction that high if I'm not running ice weapons on that second boss. So that probably played a part as well. And I heard that you can only have up to a certain only like up to 75% damage reduction as well.
Yep.
I don't know. Like we were kind of relating this game kind of to Borderlands. Like early on in Borderlands, you kind of have kind of basic weapons. They maybe every now and then you find a weapon that has a cool like trait to it. But then later on in the game, they just have insane things.
I think this game does a better job than Borderlands because Borderlands, it's kind of like the same Diablo type of game where you just run into like 1,000 different things and you don't really think about it too much. It's just like, oh, well, this is better, but you don't really spec yourself out in Borderlands. It's not like, hey, well, this has frost, so I need to get this frost accessory. And it's not like every single thing I walk over.
Well, just along the lines of finding things that are just like outrageous. Like,
yeah.
They kind of, I guess,
I
kind of
can
make
kinda
you
see
want to
that.
keep playing and because you found something that's really good on your last run. And it just seems like it just, for the point that I'm at in the game right now, those things just come across very rarely.
Greg, how far did you get, out of curiosity?
So I think I got up to the second boss, I want to say. But I couldn't beat him. But I was consistently getting to the first boss. Maybe every few runs I wouldn't get there or he might kill me, but for the most part I was always getting to the first boss and maybe a stage after that.
Cool.
I think we had determined, I think it was Greg, I think he played like 8 or 9 hours. I think he said 8. And I think Trevor was, I think it was 6 or, no, 9 overall, I think, as well.
Yeah, about 9 hours in.
Do you know how much you played, Dante?
Yeah, I'd like to say 15 hours into the game total.
Okay. And I definitely put in the most time with this game. I'm probably 40, 45 hours into this game. And like I said, I just beat the game yesterday for the first time.
Yeah, it's very variable as far as like how much time it's going to take an individual.
And I will say, like I was telling them, like, or Trevor specifically, like, the difference between even the difference between where you're at 5 hours versus where you're at 10 hours, like, those first levels just become more and more trivial. And it got to the point where I was, like, the way to challenge myself was to try to speed through the level to get to the time doors on the next levels.
Like, once you get certain abilities, it's almost impossible to, I don't say impossible, but it's very difficult to die in the first, before the first boss for real.
Yeah.
Just because you'll have 3 potions and...
Yeah, that was the
stuff.
thing when I was playing on Trevor's is, so Trevor, I played maybe about an hour and a half or so at Trevor's place on his save file, and he didn't really have many items unlocked, and...
Ooh, that's like the first thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't know. And like for me, the very first thing I unlocked was the recycling, and then the next thing I unlocked was being able to take your gold over to your next run. So,
Well, when I said like those are the first things, I meant like that top stack of things
oh yeah, yeah.
that affect every single run
Well,
versus
I
the
was
random
even talking
items.
about Trevor didn't really have any item like actual physical items that you carry unlocked. Not many. So he was starting off with the base items. He didn't even have the random, bow and random shield things unlocked.
I was
So
getting maybe like 10 cells per run.
exactly,
At this point.
exactly. And so I unlocked a couple things for him, but like it was crazy to play. Like I was struggling on Trevor's play on his save file because I didn't have items that I was used to, and I didn't have as many potions, so my margin of error was smaller. So it was like, oh crap, like I'm playing with weights on, kind of. And it was like I was struggling a little bit, and I did die on the sewers level maybe once or twice, because I got like either overly confident and thinking like, oh, I can dodge this, and forgetting, oh, I only have one potion, or just some silly stuff like that. Because I had been so used to being like, oh, I have 3 potions, so it doesn't matter. I can just heal up, and then I play Trevor's game, and he only has 1 potion.
Oh no, that's like day one. Get that
Sure,
first
sure,
potion.
but I mean, he just hadn't had enough time put in
Yeah,
and didn't have enough
and since he
cells
didn't
built
get
up.
that many cells, he's probably like, let me try to get a weapon or
Exactly,
something that's better.
exactly. And so, and then a thing that you didn't tell me until after we recorded the last show was that you could break the door and skip
Yep.
spinning your cells at the first level. So you could like basically just build up a bunch of cells and then just piecemeal or wholesale buy something. Uh,
Well, to be fair, I don't. That literally doesn't have a use unless you're going to go to the
sure,
forge.
sure.
So I was like, well, he's not at the part where he's in that late game thing where he needs to get the plus weapons and whatnot.
Yeah, but that was the game changer for me, where it was just like being able to just drop 100+ cells on a single thing and like actually see some tangible progress, because it was like I didn't ever feel like I was making any progress in the forge, so I never wanted to spend money in it. And being able to quickly drop 100 cells in the forge, or maybe like drop 30 cells, buy an item, 50 cells towards something, and still put 20 cells into the forge, was like game changing for me.
That's fair.
So I ended up unlocking a whole bunch of things because of that little change. So that was very helpful for me.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy when you posted your, I guess, in-game results in the group chat, and I saw that you lost, was it 950 something cells?
Yeah, I've lost so many cells because of
That's
like
crazy.
playing and just holding on to cells. And then I end up dying for some dumb stuff, and then losing like, oh, there goes 75 cells. So that happened, but it's all good because like I could 20, 30 more minutes, I'd be right back at where I was at. Another thing too that we talked about, and I said I couldn't do it, but I definitely did it over this Christmas break. Was I was saying, I can do like a run, and then, or maybe a run or two, and then call it. Like, this is not one of those games that you just sit and play like 6 hours straight. Nah, I did that.
Nope. I told you.
Yeah, man. I still think this is the
Time just happens to disappear.
most perfect
It's weird.
podcast game. I listened to so many hours of podcasts at Alyssa's house, just like at her parents' house, while I was just playing this game. So many hours. It was great. I'm trying to think, do we have anything? Is there anything else we need to talk about with this game?
Did anybody mess around with the daily challenges?
I did a couple times, but outside of that, not really.
I messed with it, but I was not. I had not been connected to the internet with my PS4, so I was just playing like literally like the same one over and over, or not over and over, but I maybe played the same one like 2 or 3 times, and I was just like, I'm good with this.
They're actually a lot of fun. I've only done 2 or 3, but just the concept of, hey, we made this custom thing and we have this specific thing. It was kind of like the elusive targets in Hitman. Just in this one, you get multiple tries. Pretty much, you have until the end of the day to complete it. So it's just a little fun thing that's there.
Yeah, yeah. The the coolest thing it was a cool way to see, like, oh, these are other potential things that I can unlock, like items that I haven't even found blueprints of, so I don't even know about their existence. And it's like, oh, like I saw a whip that I think I mentioned it last time. But there was a whip that pulled enemies closer to you, and every third attack was a critical. There was a whip that if you hit it at the very furthest range of the whip, it did critical damage. There was a boomerang that I saw that you could throw it, and then it did critical damage on the way coming back. There was an item that it was a spear and or like a I guess a spear, and it did critical damage if you interrupted an opponent's attack. So that was interesting. And there was another spear that if you hit 2 enemies in the same strike, it did critical damage or bonus damage or whatever. So there's some cool stuff. I was telling him, did you ever find any of those single use items?
No.
Yeah, so I had this run. I was on the Slumbering Sanctuary, and I killed a random elite or something, and it dropped this legendary item, and it was a single-use item, so you could only use it once per level, and it was in the trap or grenade slot, and it was something stupid like you use it, and then there's a radius around you that does 30. Anybody in that radius gets hit for bleeding, and they take damage over like 7 seconds. It heals you 30%, and then it causes poison to anybody in that. And it was a single-use item. So I had picked it up, and I killed everybody around me, and I didn't know it was a single-use item. I was like, this seems OP, and I used it because I wanted to see what the actual thing looked like, and then it was gone. And then I was like, oh, so I have to get to the next level in order to replenish this thing. And I haven't even bought, like I was telling them, I hadn't even bought the base level of this item. So I don't even know, I don't know what the base level of this thing looks like. It's not something I ever unlocked. And I haven't seen that thing since.
Dang.
Yeah. So there's some silly stuff in this game that I'm like, haven't even seen yet.
So, did you talk any at all about the final boss and the subsequent stuff that happens?
No, not at all. Not at all. I haven't played
Okay.
since I've beaten it. I've been, still giddy.
Oh man, so you didn't? Did you even like walk around after you?
Yeah, and I went into the fountain.
Did you do the thing?
You just start the game over.
Well, when you beat the final boss, you get something called, I think it's called BC or whatever. That's what everybody abbreviates it to online. I guess it's boss cell. And pretty much it's equivalent to a new game plus. So you get to this vat back in the very first room in the game, and you turn it from 0 to 1. And pretty much enemies from like mid to late game start showing up in the very first level.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it gets a lot harder.
Okay.
So you have plenty of stuff to still do.
Weird. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely...
And I think there's also new weapons.
I believe that. I definitely think that I'm going to continue to play this game, but...
And you know all those doors you could knock on with the certain circles on them?
Yeah.
Depending on the amount of boss cells BC that you have, you can knock on those doors now, so they'll actually unlock.
Okay. Because, after a while, I just started skipping them.
Yep.
What's behind the doors?
I think they're challenge rooms or something. I remember looking online to like figure out what it was, but I haven't actually played too much of it. But pretty much every time you beat the final boss, you get an extra boss cell or whatever. Up to 7, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I was kind of curious what those doors did. That, and then kind of coming across the empty cell. I was wondering what those were as well.
Empty cell.
Like the prison cells or whatever.
In the first area or in the sewer?
Yeah, first area.
Okay. I think there's a dude at some point in one of those empty cells, but I could be wrong.
You just have to catch him in time, basically.
I can't remember if it's like you needed an item and then he starts showing up, or it might be a timing thing. But there's a lot of mysterious stuff in this game, which is one of the things I really like about it.
Do you do you intend to keep playing this game at all?
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm not sure if I'm going to play any soon, or I'm going to wait until that really big update they're putting out pretty soon comes out. But I definitely do plan to continue to play.
Okay. I think I'm probably going to try to tamper my playing down a little bit and just play like maybe a run every now and then instead of like, playing for 3-4 hours at a time. Just to stay fresh, and because I still want to. I feel like I'm halfway through unlocking stuff just based off the amount of jars that I have filled. So I kind of want to unlock everything if I can.
That makes sense. Greg, Trevor, do you guys plan on playing still?
I think I will, just because it seemed like a pretty good stream game.
Have you messed around with any of the streaming options?
So that's the thing. So I was playing on PS4, and to my knowledge, the PS4 version doesn't have it. But I'm gonna buy it on PC just for that reason. So yeah, I plan on like starting to play through on that and doing that.
That's pretty cool. Trevor, Marcus, have you guys heard of that stuff?
What's that?
So the game has Twitch integration, which means like you start it in that mode, and depending on what chat types into your Twitch stream, things can happen.
I think I saw a streamer using some of that one time.
I had not
Does
watched
that make
anybody
sense?
play this game, so I don't know what that means.
Like where people who are watching can use items.
So like,
And cause stuff to spawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes they have to heal
There's a
you, and
mutation.
sometimes there'll be a boss.
There's a mutation
One of
that
the people in chat.
I have the ability to unlock, but I didn't unlock it, where it says like you take 80% less damage to traps. Is that specifically for the stream stuff? Or is that even including like the spikes and the little rotating spiked maces or whatever?
That sounds different than what we're talking about, I think. Like, what we're talking about is, say, so-and-so logs into your Twitch stream while you're streaming the game.
Mm-hmm.
He can type in, like, heal 10 or something. Well, I don't know exactly how it works. But say you typed in, like, heal 10, then you get healed by 10%.
That sounds OP.
Yeah.
Well, I think they can do both ways. They can grief you or they could help you.
Yeah, I've been in somebody's chat while they played it, and I've seen where one of the people in chat have become the boss. So that's pretty cool, where they can kind of change up the attacks and all that.
Okay.
Huh. That's almost a direct throwback to, I think it was Demon Souls that did it, where there's one very specific boss in the game where, like, if you're connected online, it will literally summon another player to be the boss, quote unquote. So that's cool that they did that.
Okay. It sounds cool. Like, I don't know. There's this game. I had so much fun with this game. I was just like, man, like, there's certain games where it's like, it makes me realize I really sounds stupid, but I would really like to start streaming, because this game is really fun and I really like this game and I would have fun streaming this game. And like, I felt that with Into the Breach and FTL in this game. So I was just like, man, like, those 3 games, I would have a blast streaming these games, and I will probably have to watch some streams to see what that means, since I will probably never stream.
You should make it a 2019 resolution.
Yeah, that could be a thing. Well, are we good with the Dead Cells talk? Does anybody got anything else?
I feel so. I feel like it.
You got anything else, Trevor?
I don't think so.
Did you say you're going to stick with it, or you going to play it like every now and then? Or
I probably will play some more. because I said that about Cuphead, and I played it for a little bit after I got to a point where I was stuck for a while. But I don't know, with this one, it seems like there is a definitive end, but it also seems like you can become there's possibility to become infinitely better.
Yeah.
So there's I could see myself playing it some more.
Well,
And after beating the game and knowing what lies just ahead of me, it almost doesn't feel like I beat the game for real.
that's kind of
If
how
that
I
makes any
feel
sense.
too. Where it's like, 40 hours in and I finally beat it the first time and it's like, wow, whew, like pat myself on the back and kind of take a little like break.
Best moment of 2018.
I don't know. Have you played Into the Breach yet, man?
Well,
But yeah, like I kind of just like, okay, pat myself on the back. There's more to come. This is only a taste. It's like, oh, I've gotten over one mountain, and now there's another one looming ahead of me. So it's the best way I can describe it. But okay, well, do you have a question for this game, Dante? Or if not, it's fine. You can maybe think of one later. Don't need to put you on the spot.
I kind of thought of one. I don't know how it's gonna go. If you could dead cellify one game, what would it be?
Meaning?
So when I say dead cellify, like it becomes a rogue where you have to start most of it over, and the weapon / item rotation is kind of randomized. Is there any series that you'd like to see a rogue take on, I guess?
The first thing that comes to mind for me, and I don't know if it's the best thing, is Metal Gear.
That'd be interesting.
Like you could do something maybe with the Metal Gear Solid 5 engine, because that's kind of like the best mechanically playing Metal Gear. So, or maybe it would be even better going back to like the original, because maybe that kind of fits to that style of gameplay a little bit better.
I think it would be kind of cool if you just kind of started with the SOCOM, or I guess the Tranquilizer gun, and then everything you got from there was just randomized and you just had to deal with it.
Yeah.
So the one that came to my mind was one of the classic Resident Evils, like I'd say 1 through 4. If you just had some type of, the zombies were in random spots. I mean, horror games are kind of like that already, but if you randomize just all the aspects of it, I feel like it would be that much more terrifying each time, just because you couldn't get a predictable pattern.
What about what is that horde, or what is the horde mode, or the mode in Resident Evil called?
Mercenaries?
Mercenaries? What if you just did mercenaries and you started off with a different weapon at the beginning, and like maybe the ammo that dropped was like, instead, like maybe you started off with a machine gun and it only dropped like pistol ammo or something, so you had to like use your knife more or something like that.
I think that'd work. Like, I don't think it would have... From what I've played of Mercenaries, I remember it being a little bit more action-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But
And Cellified.
I could definitely see that working.
I think for me, just because this has been on my brain, is probably, and they kind of have it in the game, so maybe it's cheating, but Transistor, and maybe like, I mean, I guess technically those challenge rooms where you have to like make something work with some combination of items or whatever, but maybe that is cheating, because I guess that is in the game, huh?
I mean, I could understand like the main game of Transistor being like that. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Not to get off topic too much, but has anybody tried Hades yet? The other other game that they did.
I need to do that.
I thought about trying it,
but I still need to finish their last game though.
I want to, but I'm kind of against playing free to play game, or not free to play, but I guess
early access
games. That's not really my thing, so I will probably hold off. And I actually haven't gotten. I just bought Pyre, and
yeah, that's right, Pyre. I couldn't think of the name of it.
Spoilers. That's probably going to be on the list. So I don't know if it's going to be on my next one, but it probably will be on the list. You, Trevor?
So I would have to say, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is Monster Hunter World, and I don't know how it would work for previous Monster Hunter games. I don't know how, because Monster Hunter World is the only one that I've played. But one thing that I don't know, I wish I would have done differently with Monster Hunter World when I was really into it was trying out more weapons. And so I think going into it with random weapons, like starting off with a random weapon and then being able to, I guess somehow level it up or add perks to it, like before you start like a hunt, and then being able to use it on specific monsters. I don't know. It seems like it would create some interesting gameplay.
See, this was a hard question for me because like even thinking about it, like most of the games I play are run-based games. Because I was even thinking like, well, FTL, nope, doesn't count. Into the Breach, nope, doesn't count. Like Hotline Miami, nope, like doesn't count. Like everything that like most of the games that I really really like to play are already run-based and already kind of have a ability to do that.
I think there's room for like a rogue Hotline Miami somewhere, like a pure rogue. Of course, that'd be the most frustrating game ever, since you die in one hit.
Yeah, but like even then, like some of the masks have you start off with a weapon, or you can't pick. Like the only way to do it in that game would be like you start off with a random mask every time, which would be so disorienting. It's like, oh, you died,
That'd be
new
bad.
mask, and it's like, oh, this mask, you like unless you knew the different abilities or whatever, like they'd have to display like what that mask ability is from the jump, because that would be so hard to be like, oh crap, like I can't pick up weapons, or oh I can only doors are lethal, or oh like I'm the mask with the limited range of vision or whatever.
To an extent, Rogue Legacy kind of does that, where every person like you get has some type of trait. Some of them are positive, some of them
But
aren't.
I thought that carries over, so you can kind of like continue on with a specific trait.
I think there might be an ability to make it carry over, but most of the time,
Well, because I thought
don't
you're always
think you
playing as
can.
offspring, so like there's maybe
You are, but they have their own things. Like my previous one didn't have it, but then like I'd get somebody that was 2D, which meant like when they went left and right, they'd become like this flat thing, and one would be colorblind, and yeah, I think the traits are kind of random actually.
okay.
But I don't think on the same token they're as jarring as like Hotline Miami Mask.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we can wrap this episode up. The only other thing, did you guys want to like quickly touch on, or just maybe we want to talk about our list for 2018, or
We can get into some salt.
okay. So if you guys follow us on Facebook or Twitter, we decided as a kind of fun thing that each of us would kind of put a list up of our favorite games that we had played collectively for missed checkpoints, and kind of rank the games that we played all this year. So starting way back in January, we basically ranked the 14, 15, 16, give or take. I guess we played 14 games collectively, and then we had the bonus podcast. So like I didn't play Firewatch, so I don't have Firewatch on my list, and Greg and Trevor didn't play Mega Man, so they didn't have Mega Man 11 on their list. And we kind of just ranked 1 through whatever the games that we played, and just kind of to give you guys a taste of like our own personal taste in games that we're playing or that we enjoyed. And I think we'll have some graphics going up. Probably at the time you're hearing this, they should be posted up on Twitter and we posted the list on Facebook. So I've been posting them every couple of days, so my list will go up probably list is the last list and will go up by the time you heard this as well. So make sure, if you guys want to see the full list, you can check them out at our Facebook or at our Twitter. I guess some of the highlights, for some reason, I think there is an accident, but Dante and Greg have Ninja Gaiden Black as their favorite game that they played this year.
I mean, it's obvious because it's the best game.
Yeah, when I saw your list, I just assumed you were dyslexic, Marcus, to be honest.
What else? What are some other standout things? Let's look at Dante's first. So, Dante likes Brothers slightly more than Papa Yo.
How you feel about that, Marcus?
Surprise! I'm used to Dante letting me down, so...
It was like a 50-50 toss-up, and I'm like, you know what, let me incite Marcus a
I
little
bet,
bit more.
to be honest, I bet Dante really, in its heart of hearts, it has a 15A and 15B, but just for the sake of, stabbing me a little bit, he did it as he did it.
You're not entirely wrong.
Let's see, what else? Greg, this guy has Transistor as number 12, which is just it hurts that's the most disappointing thing.
And that's the thing, and it's not even a bad game.
No, it's not.
Just, it just didn't hit home with me, I guess.
I don't understand, man. I always think to myself, if we were our spectrum, and I was I think of the four of us, I feel like you care about gameplay the most. I think that is you are mostly skewed towards fun gameplay, and then I think it's Dante after that. I think Dante is also heavily skewed gameplay, but I think he appreciates story slightly more than you. And then I feel like me and Trevor are maybe a little bit on the other side, where we're maybe a little bit more story. We appreciate story more than you guys, and gameplay is more we like gameplay as well, but maybe not as much as you guys do.
I'm just going to say I was also equally disappointed by his positioning of Ace Attorney, where I can't see it right now.
It's a number
reason.
11, right before Transistor.
Yeah, see, that really irked me. It rubbed me the wrong way. Because Greg's my homie, and I'm like, man, these other two, they're nonsense.
I just completely disregarded Greg's list after seeing Syndicate so high.
Look, looking back at it, if I had another shot to redo it, I think I would definitely move Detroit a little bit lower.
It's at 8 right now. So you mean to 6?
I think I'd probably go as far as maybe 11.
Oh, you mean so
that.
Oh, I got you. Lower the opposite way.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, Syndicate's in the right spot.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
So I think me and you are the only two that liked Syndicate, but
Wait, I like Syndicate. I just didn't like the multiplayer.
Okay, then I'm the opposite. I think me and you were the only ones that liked the multiplayer of Syndicate.
Wait, I like the multiplayer Syndicate.
I can't tell, man. It's your second lowest game. So, alright, well... So Dante was the only one that didn't like the multiplayer Syndicate. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I guess me and you, Trevor, I didn't like the single player. I mean, I like the world, but I just didn't like how it played. But that multiplayer was super fun.
Yeah, the multiplayer was fun.
What were you about to say about the single player?
But it wasn't enough to redeem the single player.
I got you. See, for me it was. So, for me, it's at number 10. And
I think I was the only person that kind of liked the single player.
Bro, this game would have been higher on my list if they didn't have the multiplayer in it. I enjoyed that game quite a bit.
I think we all had Reddit up lower as well, which was kind of disappointing because I do feel like that is a game that, of all the games we played this year, that was the one that was most hurt by, I guess, the most aged.
Age.
Is that a fair assessment? Where it was like, oh, if we played this when it came out, it would probably be, we'd like it a lot more.
Man, well, you could argue that for Brothers, maybe.
I don't know if that was more of age as it was replay.
I think Brothers was going to be entirely replay for me. It's just like it didn't hit as hard at all.
I just think enough games have come out between now and whenever Brothers came out to be like, oh, well, this isn't actually good or unique or interesting.
I don't think it's bad, but it's just kind of like,
you
like what he was saying. Like, you already went through that experience once, so like it's not as it's not nearly as affecting as it was the first time.
I really wish one of us had never played that game before we played it, because like all of us had played it before, and for Brothers, I think unanimously, like we boo-boo that game besides Trevor. So like Dante and Greg had it at 15.
He has the gall to put that as number 2 on his list.
Dante and Trevor, or excuse me, Dante.
It wasn't number 2.
It is number 2 on your. Oh wait, no, it's number 3 on his list.
Oh, my bad.
So
really?
so
Wow.
So yeah, Dante and Trevor are.
To account the first time I played this game, and when we played it for the podcast, I'm pretty sure it was my third time playing it.
So you played it
and
one
still
time.
Put in 3.
Still.
Every time he plays it, it goes back a further spot.
The nerve.
I'm trying to think anything else. Yeah, I think like so. I was looking at it, and me, Dante, and Trevor have the same exact. We have the second favorite game is Transistor, and then our fourth favorite game is Phoenix Wright, and our fifth favorite game is Hotline Miami, and that's across all three of us. And so, yeah, Greg didn't really like Phoenix Wright as much as us, and then Transistor either, which is he's kind of whack for that. But at least he had Hotline Miami. He had it at number 2, which I appreciate.
I will say all 3 Advance Wars fans on the internet have come out and spoken against us.
Yeah, so
every single list we post, aside from, well, I guess we haven't posted
our fan-voted game was Advance Wars, and so far of the 3 lists we posted on Facebook, everybody's like, why is Advance Wars so low? And I hate to break it to them, but I think I like the game the most out of all of us, like, legitimately, not even with the list. And I think Trevor had it as his least favorite game.
Yeah.
Dante had it at number 13 for him. Greg at number 9, and I had it at number 8. And they were complaining about Greg having it at number 9, so I don't know what they're going to say about me having it at number 8. I guess really the only other I can't believe you guys is Catherine, man. That's the third best game we played this year.
It's pretty high on my
You gotta
list.
embrace the anime, guys. I don't know what you guys are doing.
Anime expert Marcus Dawson.
Number 7's still high.
All systems Catherine over here.
Exactly. Let me tell you about Vincent and Sheeps.
Looking at Marcus's list, I'm still somewhat triggered that Brothers is higher than Evil Within and Ninja Gaiden Black.
Bro,
What's
his list
what's wrong
is
with
trash.
I mean, that says a lot. As bad as Brothers is now.
His just seems spiteful. I know
Basically.
Marcus's heart of hearts. He knows Ninja Gaiden's a better game than
Okay.
what he has.
Yes. Okay. Dante is 100% correct. Ninja Gaiden is. I don't even want to. What is the opposite of objectively? Factually?
Whatever meme face thing you
Factually?
have. You know that really cringy 2D meme face thing with the really big
Yeah.
grin? That's you when you
No,
play Ninja Gaiden,
so
where you
for
do.
me, it was. This is my own personal list, so I'm not ranking these games as these are the best games. For me, it's just these are the games I had the most fun with. And personally, I think Ninja Gaiden is a good game. I just, like I said, games 11 through 15, I probably will never play those games ever again. And it's not because they're bad games. It's just because I have no interest in going back to those games. And So if we're being honest, the highest I could put Ninja Gaiden is 11. And to be honest, I would probably play Papa Yo before I play Ninja Gaiden.
Wow.
That's a statement.
Would you play Papa EO a second time over Ninja Gaiden?
If I had to choose between one of the two of them?
Yeah, if you had to play one of those games a second time.
Again.
Bro,
dude,
would you play Brothers over?
I'd play Brothers again. Hey Trevor, high five. This is my third playthrough too.
I had to go somewhere.
But I am kind of upset. As long as it took for us to play Enslaved, y'all had it. Well, I think Marq has had it ranked the highest.
Hey, it hurt my soul.
Bro, you remember who was trying to fight?
It hurt my soul.
Putting Enslaved?
It hurt my soul.
Every single time? Every single corner? I was the one person be like, nah, man, don't vote for this game.
It hurt my soul, Trevor, because I really, I was like, I like this game so much, and I just can't put it in my top 5 because those games I just like, and I think it was because I had played Enslaved before, so I couldn't get myself to put it like in the top 5 because
it's 6. You got a solid top 5, so I'll give it 6.
Yeah. I was so happy that at least somebody liked that game. I was like, I see Greg put it at number 10. I'm like, dang, dude, you're the one that suggested it.
Who all had it on their list? Was it you and Greg at first?
Yeah, me and Greg.
Greg sacrificed himself for Marcus' sake.
Yeah, I think it was because it kept getting like.
He's like, man, this Dante guy's being unreasonable. Let me help Marcus out.
So I was like, you know what? And I wouldn't mind going back playing the game. So it's like, all right, let's go ahead and get it in.
I mean, the DLC was mad good too, so. That really was an excuse for me to just play the DLC again, so I appreciate it.
And I did finally finish the DLC once it got installed.
It was good too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Still on your hard drive good? I thought so.
You like the DLC too, man. What you talking about?
Old technology.
It was actually okay.
And shout out, or I shouldn't say shout outs, but like I also appreciate that we all the bonus podcasts, you guys liked Firewatch about equally. It was up there for you guys. Like I didn't see it any lower than number 7. And then even for me and Dante with Mega Man, it wasn't any lower than 8. So we actually picked like bonus, I guess, worthy games as our bonus podcasts. So we should definitely, I'd like to do some more bonus podcasts next year. So we should definitely keep that up. Any other closing thoughts with the anything? You got anything you need to say? Close out 2018. Missed checkpoints. Crew.
I choose best games. We have that on record now. I got 3 out of the 4. That's all I'm gonna say for number 1.
Hey, you're not. I mean, if you include Transistor being number 2, then yeah.
Technically, I think Trevor put on Transistor.
Oh, you're right. He picked Brothers and Transistor.
Even though I was cheering.
Yeah. So I guess Transistor evens out against Brothers for Trevor, and then Hotline Miami evens out for Papa Yo. you get the bad with the good. Actually, Trevor, I think most of his games are at the lower end.
I mean,
it's okay though.
Anybody that puts Ninja Gaiden that low deserves utter scorn, as far as I'm concerned.
I thought you'll hate Starbreeze. Rest in peace.
Dude, we played 3 Starbreeze games this year, man. We brought that on them.
Hey, Trevor, how's Starbreeze doing nowadays?
Man, we tried to help.
Trying to tell people
something about embezzling funds and so good.
Dude, let's wrap this up so we can actually make it our shortest episode.
I'm cool with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Greg, where can people find us?
Oh, us or me?
I'm sorry, I just screwed this all up. Do we got any emails?
Actually, let me check. I doubt it. But
I do
just
too.
For posterity, No email.
The perfect meme for our missed checkpoints. I guess you could say listeners is the bird box. Just like emails, they're just blindfolded. What is that? Well, if people want to get a hold of you, Greg, where can they find you at?
You guys can hit me up on Twitter at Boombox Hero. Facebook is the same, Boombox Hero, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/xdrdmagnegrox.
Where can people find you at, Trevor?
You can find me on Twitch and Mixer and Twitter at Lyric Unsung.
Where can people find you at, Dante?
They might be able to find me on twitch.tv/awakencloud. I haven't streamed in a while. Might get back into it. Red Dead's a really long game, but I'm almost done.
Okay. And you guys can find me out at Twitter. And also just make sure to check our missed checkpoints, Twitter and Facebook, because like I said, we're going to be posting these graphics up so you can see our list. And I don't know, look forward to those. I guess moving forward, we kind of started, I guess we started this thing in 2017, like around September, so we didn't have a full year to do it the first year, but this was kind of fun, and maybe we can do some more stuff like this to kind of showcase our game taste, I guess, and
or distaste.
Yeah, or distaste in Dante's case.
I was talking about stuff.
As far as we have 2 games left on our current roster of games, so we will be picking up with Doom 2016 for January, and that is Greg's game, and that will be the first game of 2019, and just looking forward to that. And then for February, we will be doing my game, which is Psychonauts. So those, at least those 2 games we have in the queued up right now, and we'll try to figure out. I might want to switch up how we do the fan submitted games next year, but be on standby for that. And I think we'll probably the end of January, so maybe a month from now, we'll probably internally figure out our next batch of games and get that posted in February. So still got a couple more episodes to flesh that out and figure that out before we unveil that. But I guess that is it for 2018. Do you guys have anything else?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Yeah. Play Dead Cells. It's a great game. Some would even say it is the game of the year. And some, I would say that's me. That and Into the Reach tied the 2 best games of 2018.
It's like a number 3-ish for me.
Okay, but you guys,
you'll see more about my list.
Yeah,
later.
Dante's the only. Well, I can't speak for myself, but I know Dante, Trevor, and I'm assuming Greg. You guys play a lot more current games than I do. Oh no! Oh well, I forgot.
Is Street Fighter current?
I
mean, you dabble though, right? Because you're the king of. I started it.
Man, it's got the older I've gotten, the less and less that's the case. I just don't even touch anything now.
Oh.
Well, yeah. Be on the lookout for Dante's list. Then I don't know if Trevor. Have you played 10 games in 2018,
Yeah.
Trevor?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you have a list?
Putting out a list.
He's
Oh,
A Way
gotcha,
Out, number
gotcha.
1.
Oh,
Do you really think that Brothers is better than A Way Out?
yes.
And we are missed checkpoints, and we are Ghost.
Close. We're missed checkpoints, and we're out. Peace.